Hello. The Templar Final Stand, Crusades 2 through 6. This is from the Knights Templar book, written by Robert Macoy and published in 1873 by Macoy Publishing and Masonic Supply, under the name of Masonic Publishing Company back then. So, Part third describes the battles, the kings, and hardships the Knights Templars endured from 1099 to 1291. We can't give the details or the exact details of 2 centuries here, but we will walk through basically what happened in those 200 years. So you can get a better understanding of the claims that McCoy makes from this section or part third. And then you can understand the actions that will say, hey, this is what you should learn from it. So the first thing that happens is, as you guys remember from the previous one, is that there's refusal at Tyre. So after being released by Saladin, who was from the Muslims, King Guy and Grandmaster Riderford arrived in Tyre, but the gates were shut against them by Conrad de Montferrat. And so then what King Guy does is that he says, seeking to regain his kingdom, he marched to Acre with fragments of the Templars and Hospitallers, and they began a siege that lasted nearly 2 years. Then in Saladin, who's like, wait a minute, you gave me an oath that you're going to leave the Holy Land, and now you're attacking a city. So Saladin essentially surrounds the Christians who were surrounding the city. So it was like a siege within a siege. So then about 2 years later, the big dogs come in. This is where the arrival of the kings like Philip of France and Richard the Lionhearted, and this broke the stalemate. Acre was taken, and it became the new headquarters of the Christians. And then the Christians spread from there because there was money from the kingdoms and all that kind of stuff. And so, they basically kind of took over the Holy Land again. Then, about the latter part of the 13th century, the Christians were defeated one city at a time. So this is when the defeat of the Templars happened in the 1200s. And finally, they were put back to Acre. Acre was the only city that they had. And then the city was surrounded, and the Templars they were defeated, and they had to retreat to Cyprus, thus ending the crusade. So there's the thing. But one other point I'd like to make is during this period of time, the Knights Templars accumulated a lot of wealth because they became bankers, meaning the kings would say, well, I want you to build these temples, I want you to restore these churches, and they would send money to them. And there was also merchants who wanted to move money around the Mediterranean. So they knew that the Crusaders could do that. They were trusted, so they became kind of bankers, is what they became. But that catches you up on where we are. So what did McCoy say? And what were the claims that he made from the Battle of Hattin, where they lost, to the fall of Acre? Well, first off, he talks about that claim number one is the resilience of the institution over the individual. Throughout the 12th and 13th centuries, European kings came and went, often leaving the Holy Land in chaos. McCoy shows that while the secular kingdom was often failing, the Templars remained the one constant bulwark. His claim is that the order was stronger than one leader. In its military and monastic discipline, it allowed it to outlast the shifting political whims of European monarchs. So the insight is that this is where McCoy demonstrates that it's really about, he talks about the ritual and the symbols of the Blue Lodge and Knights Templars. And he shows that it is these things that preserves the light when individuals fail, which we see because we all have blind spots, right? The other thing he talks about is the banking power. McCoy highlights a prodigious wealth of the order, noting that they spent $825,000 and $3 million, and this is in 19th century money, to restore the castle of Sophet. While he credits the donations of the pious, he alludes to the order becoming a global bank for kings and merchants. So the insight is the Templars understood that to maintain the standard of protection, they had to be the most financially organized entity in the world. And I think this is true for our lodges, right? So we have to be cognizant of how many brothers are we bringing in, how many brothers are we losing. Also, what's happening I know nobody likes to raise dues, but what do we want to do and how do we want to do it? So those are things that he talks about. The honorable final stand in Acre in 1291. During the loss of the last Christian possession in Palestine, the Templars didn't just retreat, they fought until their headquarters literally collapsed. Macoy notes that the glory shone with undivided light alongside the Hospitallers during this final tragedy. So the insight is that this sets the stage for our part fourth, Tees, which is Jacques de Molay was elected the Grand Master after the retreat. And finally, the Masonic Refuge Theory, which this is the Tees of Jacques de Molay. Macoy discusses the aftermath of 1291, where the survivors regroup in Cyprus, and this is where he suggests the spirit of the order survived the rubble of Acre, being carried into the shadows of Europe. This is punctuated by the election of de Molay as Grand Master of 1293. I always say this is where that mystery comes in, right? You know, where the secret, did the Crusades start, Freemason? But I think what he's really saying, McCoy's talking about the spirit of this is what people believed in, and it's why they have such a fascination with this. All right, so what can you do today with this information? Well, first off, secure your independent stronghold. Just as the defenders of Tyre refused to let the failing king surrender their city, you must refuse to be a cynical employee when leadership falters. So the action is focus on your specific department or station. Secure your area of responsibility, whether it's a large finances, it's meals, or visiting the sick brothers. Be the bulwark of the lodge. The goal is don't just complain about the boss. Make your area of control the thing that others brag about to new members or prospective members of the lodge. Second, audit your building budget, time and money. Analyze where you're spending your capital. Are you spending your time and money on the things that will get you the results you want? So your goal is to build that spiritual building that you've always dreamed of. Third, plan your Cyprus pivot and succession. If a project fails, don't quit on the mission. Just change your base of operation. And think about your succession. And this, we want to highlight the junior deacon in the lodge, because this is the person who you hope will continue to build on the standards and the ritual and the symbols that are and the tenets of our institution. Finally, build an endurance mindset. Don't get discouraged by a calamitous week or a project that collapsed. Regroup and stay focused on the goal. Stay true to your standard until there's no ground to stand on, and then move on to the next project. Well, that's it. Thank you for watching and listening today. We appreciate it. If you liked this and you would like to see other videos, you can subscribe to the Macoy Publishing YouTube channel, or you can visit us at macoy.com. That's MACOY.com. Thank you.